Alex.
I'm David.
I'm Steven.
And we had three different articles that we're covering today. They were all done by the Harvard Business Review. The first one is Look Beyond Your Social Media Presence by Jacques Buin. The second one is Social Tools Can Improve Employee Onboarding by Carrie Williard. And the third was Use Social Media to Build Emotional Capital by Andrew Shipoloff. So all of these kind of tie into utilizing social technologies in the workplace. When you guys think of social media, what do you think of? Anyone? Facebook? Instagram? No more? Okay, taking it old school. When you guys think of these social medias, how many of you think about work with them? Like career-wise? Yeah? In what aspect?
There's a lot of networking that can go on for sure.
Okay.
First and foremost.
Do you ever think about using it in the workplace though? Or just to get to the workplace?
Typically just to get to the workplace.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about kind of getting to the workplace, but also using it once you are in the workplace. With that being said, we're gonna cover 5 different points. The first one being how the onboarding process is important and can decrease turnover. The second is the use of social media and technologies before the onboarding process and the importance and benefits of it. The third is the use of social media within a corporation to get to kind of a shared pool of knowledge with less miscommunication between each other. And the fourth, the social technologies when they're being used at scale, which is kind of using them all the time. And the emotional capital in the business that would help to create a community that facilitates more productivity and decreases turnover. So with that being said, I'm going to hand this over to David to keep going.
So by show of hands, how many of you would say what causes an employee to stay or leave a company depends on, out of the 3, their superior or their boss or manager? By show of hands, how many of you would say? All right, and then second, because of the environment or the atmosphere of the workplace, who would say? The majority, yeah. And then lastly, coworker relationships, even boss or manager relationships, a couple people. All right, so going into our first point, why onboarding matters. This study reveals that 86% of new hires decide to either stay or leave a company within the first 6 months of employment. In parallel to that, within the first, on average, 6.2 months, new hires either decided that the career that they had chosen or the job that they had chosen was either one that they could see themselves working in the future for the next 10 to 20 years, or whether they thought that they could no longer work in that place. And the first 6 months is when they decide that. And then even greater than that, 89% of new hires say they don't have the necessary knowledge to even to be somewhat competent in their job. So the bottom line from this that we would suggest to students who are going into their career is that within the first 6 months is a critical time for you to decide either your future with that company or your future elsewhere. The bottom line is that the proper onboarding yields success in both productivity and in business results. Second to that, previously we asked how social media can be play a part in the workplace. Social media, simple definition, is it's a tool that allows people, such as employees or coworkers, to create, share, exchange information in virtual communities and to network with one another. The key part with this is that social media it can be used in the workplace beginning the actual occupation. So through onboarding, you can use social media to get to know other new hires before or even at the beginning of the onboarding process. Very similar to how when you go to, for example, a university and you live on campus, you probably reach out to your roommate to get to know them a little bit better, to start that communication. This social media can be very much so used in the same way to get to know your coworkers. This very bottom quote kind of puts it into perspective. Maybe if employees were to reach out to others, they may even create potential friendships, which yields 35% them to be 35% more likely to commit to quality and among other benefits in that particular job. Now I'll pass it on to Stephen. He'll talk more about social media.
Thank you, David. All right. According to McKinsey Global Institute, they made statistics about how many people use social media. That was in 2018. The result was Facebook has the highest user of social media. But just before I explain all that, the recent statistics just showed we have about at least 7.7 billion people in the whole world, and out of 7.7 billion, at least 3.5 billion uses social media. And according to my mathematics, that means 1 out of every 3 people will actually use the social media, which means since business has to do with people, one way for them to get into dealing with people, they have to get involved, engage into social media. Because even the social media itself right now, they've been going through improvement and improvement. Let's take for instance Twitter. When Twitter came into existence, they would not allow people to post videos or pictures. The only thing you could do is just type, tweet, whatever you want to tweet. But right now, since 2011, I believe you can actually post videos and post pictures, which is a good marketing tool. Now let's go ahead and talk about the benefit of social media in every business. The first one is strengthens employees' connection. Before the introduction of social media, communication was done one-on-one, boss with boss, and the other boss will have to communicate it to subordinate or through the use of email. And that will actually take time. Let's say, for instance, if I'm the boss and I'm trying to pass some information to my colleague at the corner there, and I have to talk to him, I pass some information to him, and I'm like, hey, make sure the last person over there gets to know what I just said. So he has to go through him. Most of you agree with me, before it gets to him, the exact information will be misinterpreted or will be miscommunicated. It could be due to some different reasons. Maybe because he didn't understand what I told him, or he understood it the wrong way. It could be different reasons, maybe because I was in a haste while I was passing information to him. So with the help of social media, there's a pool where information is actually placed there, where every employee can actually get every information they want, and employees can actually discuss one-on-one, share ideas, not just at work, even outside of work. Matter of fact, according to McKinsey Global Institute, they said just that alone, that employee connection actually improved employee productivity by 25%. The other one is go viral. How does it go viral? This is a very important, I would see it as a very important marketing tool, because it's almost impossible to do for you to put your brand out there to the whole world. But with the help of social media, it is very possible. All it takes is for one person to either like, share, or comment on your video or whatever you post there, and guess what happens? It goes viral. If this person likes it, oh, I just saw what he posted, let me read what it's all about. So with the help of social media, every brand goes viral. The other one is customer feedback. I see this as one of the most important tools in every business. Why? Because customer satisfaction is what every business should be after. If your customers are not satisfied, regardless of how good your commodity, whatever you're selling out is, they may not come back to you. So with the help of customer feedback, with the help of social media, it's more or less like a platform for customers and sellers to actually directly communicate with each other. And the last one is increased employee productivity, which I already mentioned it previously. And I'll pass it to her.
It's okay. So basically using social technologies at scale, which is making sure that we're using the social media and using social technologies, not just once a week, once a month, but to really get an impact and a return on your investment for it to matter, we we need to make that a daily usage. And that's not just daily with people like the lower level employees, that's daily usage with high level executives. We want companies to be giving off like incentives, not just financial incentive, but like intrinsic incentives to show people like, hey, like this matters. If we're all using this, it's gonna make a difference. It's gonna make an impact. So the actual value from the social technology is only there when it's used at scale. That means that these executives not just using them, but supporting it. Like I said, we want companies to make sure that we're promoting it, that they are saying like, hey, like it's not just okay, but we want you to use this. This can help the employees get better with the technology. It can give them a sense of purpose. It can make them more tech savvy. If the companies aren't using it daily, if they aren't using it enough, if they're not making a difference with it, then it won't matter, essentially, in the long run. And a lot of companies, yes, they have social media, they use it, but more than half of these companies and corporations that have social technologies and have social media are failing to use them at scale, which means that they're kind of failing to use them in the right way so they matter. We want people to feel like the employees are mastering technology, and like I said, they're finding their own sense of purpose. With the intrinsic incentive, it's not just saying like, hey, like we'll give you a bonus if you do this. It's saying like this helps you figure out your place in the workplace. It helps you communicate with people, it helps you market, it helps you do whatever it is the company's trying to get to, if that makes sense. The article compared it to YouTubers who upload videos and they get intrinsic value from like going viral and what they're contributing on YouTube. So, do any of you guys use YouTube? Have used YouTube? I'm assuming so. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Have any of you uploaded things on YouTube? Is anyone social media famous or knows someone who might be locally social media famous? Someone? Yes. Okay, I'm pointing at someone. So with that being said, like you get, like you know, like internally, intrinsically that that's a value that you're putting out there, right? Yeah. So they want to kind of compare that to in the workplace when you're using this and talking to your boss through social media or like coworkers or marketing, making things go viral, whatever it is, that it's adding value to the company itself. And then I'm going to pass this off to Alex.
Thank you, Pearl. So I'm going to be talking about emotional capital now. So what is emotional capital? Emotional capital is loyalty built over time with employees. It is an emotional connection that allows leaders to spread their influence and promote positive feelings within their employees. Stein Ovfien, managing director of Tupperware, focused on building emotional capital. He realized that social media in a company should be used to reinforce employees' positive feelings about the company, their colleagues, and overall their job. So what are the 4 components of emotional capital? What executives have to realize is that internal social media success isn't about the actual software that is implemented, but about the community and the emotional connection that it creates. Authenticity is the first pillar of emotional capital. This is where what you say on social media is in line with what you mean and your actions that follow. Social media is a great way to reconnect with peers within your company as long as you stay true to yourself and do as you say online. The next pillar is pride. Pride can be used as a great motivator for employees if used properly, superseding promotions and raises. Being recognized by your boss and employees for stellar achievements can drive employees more and feel accepted in a company, thus lowering turnover rate. The third pillar of emotional capital is community. There's something very important to be said about this element, and that is that informal bonds can be formed between employees. And this characteristic helps create relationships through non-work facilitation methods, which, fostered through non-work discussions, will eventually lead to work-related discussions. In other words, internal social media allows for employees to form friendships which will eventually sprout into project work. The last pillar of emotional capital is fun. This pillar ties together and encompasses the whole purpose of having an internal social media platform within the company. If employees are having a good time and are at work, not only will their productivity improve, but it will also make them more willing to work for the company. So what does this all mean for you? Companies nowadays are incorporating new methods for trying to bring employees closer together in order to improve productivity and lower turnover rates. In order to be a part of this movement, one must remember the goal is emotional capital and the parts that incorporate it and utilize them to their best potential. Now I'm going to pass it on to Pearl firstly.
But it's okay.
So in recap, for you, these are the 5 key points that we kind of spoke about. First, onboarding does matter. That first 6 months of employment, even we could even say the first month of employment determines whether you should decide if that establishment is for you. Second, social media can be used in the workplace to build relationships in ways that every other outlet maybe may not be able to. And for the third point,
All right, was the benefit and effect of social media, social technology. The first one I said was strengthens employees' communication. It helps help brands going viral, and lastly helps employee productivity. Why do I say that? In a nutshell, that simply brings an increase in the return of investment of every business. So I will give it to her to the fourth one.
Yeah, so back to using social technologies at scale, we really just want to make sure that this usage is daily, it's often, like I said, like comparing it again to someone that's maybe social media famous for whatever it is. I have a best friend and she's Twitter famous, and she would always tell me, you know, like if I don't tweet for a couple days, I can lose thousands of followers. That's a thing that happens if you aren't actually using your social media and social technologies, even like in, for example, in the workplace, like we're talking about, if you're not using it on that scale that you need to be at, it won't make the difference in the impact that you want it to be. And Alex?
Lastly, emotional capital facilitates a powerful workforce that increases productivity and lowers turnover. So now I'm going to open up the floor to questions.